second session of my first term. Interesting dynamic, Annapolis. I spent since 1996 delegate knots, and I had been walking those streets in Annapolis lobbying people in the county. And I was a concerned order police. I was really trying to find my way in. From then, from that standpoint, then I went on to be sheriff of our county. Voted me in as your sheriff. And I led the legislative team of the sheriffs, as well as did some work on Capitol Hill. And I grew to like the legislative process, the importance of understanding where the resources are and how you bring those resources home. Because if you don't know, as they say, if you don't know, you don't know. Those resources are going somewhere every year. And the key is for us to have people who are focused on making sure we bring those resources back in Prince George's County. 2010, I retired from the sheriff's office after 23 years. Ran for executive, did not win that race. Sorry, nobody bats 1,000. Went to work for the governor. I did leadership development for the state of Maryland for public safety. Got to know our state just a little bit better, and to find out that most people have the same needs that we have. It's about the level of influence that we have. So organizations such as yours is a valuable organization. In most counties across our state and in Baltimore City, there's only one organization that takes the lead and kind of sets the tone. So you should commend yourself for not being one of them. It's very important. So in 2014, after the redistricting, I was invited to be a member of the 27th legislative team. Quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, as much as I admire the legislative process, I'm not a betting man, but I would have bet you that I would never have had an opportunity to run for legislative office unless I had to run against Mike Miller, Jim Proctor, Joe Valerio, or Steny Hoyer. Because quite frankly, with all due respect, those gentlemen plan to go out in a box. They've got the seat, they plan never to give up the seat, and they don't believe in succession planning, which is the worst thing that we have come accustomed to in our great county, in our state, in our country. I mean, you know, and Doc talks a little bit later about, you know, the Republican threat. You know, that threat is local as well as national. And we've got to do a better job with succession planning. So I had a little bit of experience doing that in the office of the sheriff as well as across the state. I'm going to make sure we're in the process of putting together what we call a 90-day report from Annapolis. It's a consensus of the General Assembly, Department of Legislative Services putting together a document, and then your team, each individual team puts together a document. I'll make sure that you all get the 2017 document. The redistricting of 2010 took effect in 2014, caused Delegate Joseph Valerio to be moved out of 27. So lo and behold, there was a position open. And that position, 27B, is where we stand today, part of the 27B district. Goes up Route 5 to Woodyard Road, comes down, takes a right on where Doc lives. I don't know how that happened. I wasn't part of the drawing of the lines. And then it cuts back around to Dangerfield and then comes. It's kind of weird, but it goes into Calvert County. So you know, we know what night and day looks like, right? So who was outside a little earlier today? Well, let's start with the morning. This morning was misty and rainy, right? Right. And then the day opened up, it was as bright as it could be. And then look outside right now and see what you see. That's like Prince George's and Calvert County. So let me just put that to you. And so when Doc talks about the Republicans, it is very local. And it's very interesting that, good afternoon, man. It's very interesting for me. This was the first time in my political career that I've ever had to actually really run a general election. Prince George's County, you win the primary, pretty much it, with Democratic County. So in 2014, I had to run a general. And, you know, some people fall asleep on the general election. Some people don't go out and vote on the general election. And then if you pay attention to who votes in the general election, you'll see where people really stand party-wise. All right, they vote on the Prince George's side. They would vote Democratic because they want the resources from the Democratic leadership in Annapolis. On the general side, where that doesn't really matter anymore for for the local politicians, they vote Republican. So we have a few polls in the southern part of this county where you see people that will come out and they will vote Republican. I found that out the hard way, kind of shocking when I looked at my numbers toward the end, but we know now. As far as Annapolis goes, this particular session, again, you'll have a more detailed document later. The budget got done pretty quickly. I'm very fortunate to be on the Appropriations Committee, so I get to see where every dime in the state goes. Don't know how I ended up on that committee, but I'll take it. Yeah, I was slated for judiciary, which is fine. I mean, I grew up in that life, but it's great to have an opportunity to be on a committee that gets to see everything. Everything that has a fiscal note to it comes to the Appropriation Committee. So. And in particular, capital projects, which Prince George's being the size of a county that it is, we have huge capital projects and transportation concerns, right? Roadways, bridges, and the like. I mean, as we know, if you drive Route 5 from the District of Columbia line and you take it south, it's very apparent where the dollars are being spent and where the focus is being spent on the roadways. We know how raggedy Route 5 and 301 and some of these other roadways can be, some of these state roads can be. So it's up to us to keep that pressure on, particularly now since we have a Republican governor. So there were a couple of things that occurred, three things that occurred. One, the last day of the session in 2015, and the other two this session. And it's because of the actions of our governor. Maryland, as the smallest state as it is, the governor is one of the most powerful governors in the country with respect to the budget. You can set aside budget dollars all you want, but you can't make the governor spend the money. So last year, 2015, we're operating on the Thornton Commission's formulas for schools. At the beginning of the session 2015, the governor had cut us out of $48 million. Toward the end, we ended up having to eat $24 million in school money. So the last day of the session last year, we mandated that Thornton Commission formula be met. Shouldn't have to mandate things, particularly when you're talking about the education of our young people, particularly when you're talking about from a government, like our governor's standpoint. He's a businessman, talks about bringing business to Maryland. Who's going to get the jobs if he can't, if they're not educated? So on the last day of session before Sonny died, we mandated that funding. Secondly, last year we set aside the $15 million operating dollars for our hospital system, which is actually this turned out to be this year's biggest priority. So there's $15 million operating commitment that was made, and remember, this commitment didn't start with the Democratic Governor O'Malley. It started with the Republican governor early, and yet we have a Republican governor this go around that says he's not going to give Prince George the money. We set the money aside, fenced it off, as we call it, along with the school dollars, and he did not spend that money. So $48 million went down to $20 or $24 million, so we had to eat $24 million in school pay to come out of our budget here in the county. We have to still operate our classrooms, plus $15 million for the hospital. That's a huge hit for us going into this year's session. So at the beginning of the session this year, we did what we had to do. We came up with a bill that says that you will honor that commitment that was made 2 governors ago. So that will ensure that we get our operating dollars for the hospital system. And so we should begin to see pretty rapidly the University of Maryland system taking over dimensions with regard to the hospital system. So that's a huge win for us. Prince George's Prince George's government will finally be out of the hospital business, which no government really should be in. But we're finally getting ourselves out of that. From a transportation standpoint, this is really one of the most volatile pieces of legislation this year. There's a transportation transparency bill House Bill 1013. I probably have about this much literature on my desk with my nice friends on the Calvary side about that piece of legislation. But what it does is it makes the governor, qualify why he fixed Route 5 in same areas in Charles County and not in Prince George's County. Or in Calvary County, Route 4. I mean, when was the last time you drove Pennsylvania Avenue from DC line, District of Columbia line, and go down into Calvary County? And as soon as you hit down by Anne Arundel County, it is smooth sailing, right? So that was one of the most, even though we have the numbers in Annapolis, I can't speak for the presiding officers, but I'm scratching my head a little bit about how long it takes some of these things to take place. But so there's a bill that says that on every transportation project, the governor has to qualify. And there's a formula, which he definitely didn't like, that qualifies it from, security, safety, and it's about 5 or 6 qualifiers. I tell you what, they geared up on the Republican side, and they sent out the mail, threatening each and every delegate and senator that's in office. But on one hand, we're all transparent. You can go online, Maryland General Assembly, look at my name, and look at the legislation and look at how I voted on each and every bill. Why shouldn't we be able to do that with the governor, who has been elected by the people? You're going to spend our money on projects, but you don't want to say, I'm going to choose Route 404, Maryland Route 404 heading to Delaware, out of the state of Maryland. It's pretty nice going to the beach, those nice smooth roads, right? But look at the population there versus Prince George's, 900,000 people. 1 million every day with Andrews and the universities and people traveling through here to go to the District of Columbia and Northern Virginia to work. Montgomery County, over 1 million people. Baltimore City, over 600,000 people. So you're going to cut out the red line in Baltimore. You're not going to give them a subway system. Traffic issues there. Yet you want to give them more buses. That doesn't make any sense, right? Unless you're just sticking it to them. Look how long it took him to concede on the purple line, making our executive, as well as Montgomery County executive, kick in more money until, he was pretty much through press conferences after press conferences made to say, okay, yeah, we're going to fund the purple line. Press conferences until he was made to say, I'm going to give the money for the hospital. So the one thing I would submit to this organization and others, again, I commend you on being more than just that blanket Democratic club for a county. Let's put the pressure on. Keep it up. Hold your elected officials accountable. That includes the governor, right? Your federal officials as well. That's the only way you get it done. Our strategy this term was to, there were multiple press conferences where you're talking about big ticket items for the citizens of the county. We can't be afraid to do those things, because at the end of the day, we're talking education dollars. So Maryland touts itself as #1 in education in the country, but Prince George is not #1. Okay, it's not #1. So we're like 23, right? So we've got to make sure we push that envelope each and every time. We've got one of the best university systems in this country. The university system in Maryland, and we also have, Hopkins, alma mater, and some others here. However, that doesn't matter if we're not educating our young people here, and we're also not putting pressure on that university system to make sure they pick up these young ladies and this young man for the schools right here, instead of saying, you may be better going elsewhere. That's something we have to hold them accountable on. I have a meeting with the president of College Park coming up about that very thing. When I was sheriff, I had a foundation, and we helped young people get into college. And we watched those 4.0s and above young people get pushed away from our flagship university to go elsewhere. And so those are the things we need to keep in mind. The votes are here. The votes are here. Prince George's is the county, the second county in addition to Montgomery County.